The Green Bay Packers set out to do a few things in the season finale against the Chicago Bears. Unfortunately, they didn't accomplish many or any of them. We're going to break down some of the mistakes that were made, including a big timeout mistake by Matt LaFleur. We've got all that coming up on this episode of the Daily Packers Post. I'm Gil Martin. I host the Daily Packers Post and also am the editor and creator of thepackerspost.com. We're going to break down some of the takeaways from the Packers' loss to the Chicago Bears in the season finale. And, the Packers set out to do a few things. They wanted to stay healthy. They wanted to create some momentum heading into the playoffs. And obviously, they wanted to possibly take over the 6th seed if they could do it, which would have required that the Dallas Cowboys upset the Washington Commanders and that the Packers beat the Bears. Well, the Commanders lost to the Cowboys, much to the surprise of a lot of people, and yet the Packers couldn't quite pull off the victory. And when you think about it, staying healthy was a big part of it because you wanted to be as ready and have as many of your best players healthy and ready for the postseason. Well, that didn't exactly work out either. Christian Watson injures his other knee, not the knee that kept him out the last couple of games. That was a big disappointment for sure. And according to Matt LaFleur, he is very concerned and doesn't really think that Watson will be ready for Sunday's playoff game in Philadelphia, although we are waiting for an official update from the team sometime on Monday. Meanwhile, Jordan Love also gets injured in the first half. He does not return now. After the game, LaFleur said, hey, we could have had Love return, but we didn't want to risk anything. So that at least was encouraging, but we're waiting for further updates. And obviously, to have your franchise quarterback get injured in a meaningless game at the season finale that could jeopardize a playoff spot is not what you're hoping for in a Week 18 game. Now, there was no reason the Packers should have lost to the Chicago Bears. The Bears came into this game on a 10-game losing streak. They were 4-2. Now they entered the game 4-12, and they had nothing to play for. The Packers had beaten the Bears 11 straight times coming into this game, and yet the Packers, again, were their own worst enemy, and for the first time, they lost to a team that was behind them in the standings and is not going to the playoffs, and it was just discouraging. I mean, the first Bears touchdown comes on a punt return where they try an old high school or schoolyard play, faking a return to one side where the ball is really on the other side. And it fooled enough of the Packers that the Bears were able to go 94 yards untouched into the end zone and take that 7-0 lead. That was certainly very, very disappointing. And, Rich Bisaccia has to have his special teams players, watch the ball, not just watch the players on the other team who look like they're going to catch the ball. It was a big mistake, and it ended up costing the Packers. But I think the biggest mistake, because this game was certainly winnable, and you had a number of really clutch kicks by Brandon McManus, including one that put the Packers ahead with less than a minute to go. And it looked like, despite the sloppiness of this game, that the Packers were going to be able to pull it off. But once again, the defense, which played well all game long, couldn't make the big stop with the game on the line. And it started with Kingsley Enagbare taking a horse collar tackle penalty on a sack of Caleb Williams. That gave the Bears 15 yards and an automatic first down. So instead of having, 2nd and 22, all of a sudden they have first down at the 35 and they're moving the ball down the field. So that certainly hurt the Packers in a big way. But I think the bigger issue was this. Green Bay had a third down with a little more than a minute to go in Bears territory. They decide to run the ball thinking that maybe there'd be an element of surprise and it would certainly keep the clock moving, but they don't get the first down. So what does Matt LaFleur do? He has a tough decision to make, and he decides to take a timeout, stopping the clock with a little more than 50 seconds remaining. And that, in and of itself, was a costly mistake. LaFleur, as a coach, had to anticipate that there were two realistic outcomes to the third down running call. Either he was going to get the first down, or he was not going to get the first down. And if he wasn't going to get the first down, assuming there was not a large loss on the play, and the way the play was set up, it was either going to gain a little bit of yardage or, you weren't going to lose 5 yards on a play like that. So he needed to know that you either are going to kick the field goal or go for it, depending on, was it 4th and 1, 4th and 3, whatever it was, you had to have an idea. If it's 4th and 2 or less, I'm going for it. If it's 4th and 3 or more, I'll take the field goal. Instead, he takes a timeout and stops the clock. Now, if he doesn't take the timeout, the Bears have to take their last timeout, and that would leave them with none. Or the Bears could let the clock run down to about 18, 20 seconds, which they weren't going to do. So you save the Bears a timeout. McManus hits the 50-plus yard field goal, and the Packers take the lead. But now the Bears have more than 50 seconds and a timeout when they start that final drive. Without the timeout, I don't think Chicago has enough time to get down the field and kick what ended up being the game-winning field goal on the final play of the game. This was just a coaching error, a mismanagement of a timeout and of the clock, and it cost the Packers dearly because, look, if the Bears had one fewer play, they most likely are not in field goal range. So the defense, which played well all game for the most part, fails to make the stop at the end, and LaFleur's poor choice of calling a timeout ends up costing the Packers either a few seconds, 20, 30 seconds off the clock, or more realistically, leaving the Bears with no timeouts and putting them in a much more difficult situation, and a situation where their play calls are limited because they need to get the ball to the sidelines to try to get out of bounds, and that they can't stop the clock without spiking the ball. It changes the dynamic of the entire last minute. So a disappointing loss. You lose your most dangerous deep receiver, probably for the first playoff game. You lose a really good chance at the 6th seed, which means you don't have to go to Philadelphia for week 1. And Jordan Love is not 100% healthy. Hopefully he will be ready to go for Sunday, the first playoff game, Sunday, 4:30 Eastern, 3:30 Central in Philadelphia against the Eagles. The Packers are the 7th seed. They will play any and all home games that they have on the road. Don't forget to check out thepackerspost.com for daily in-depth coverage of your Green Bay Packers. And we'll be back here throughout the playoffs and throughout the offseason covering the Packers on the Daily Packers Post here on YouTube. So don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button so that you never miss an episode. Thanks for watching the Daily Packers Post. I'm Gil Martin. Go Pack Go.